Make a basic app in ToolJet where you can connect your database to it and do some simple queries. I did something similar in a class a couple class periods ago, but I just wanted to record it to bring everyone up to speed. So if you want to, you can connect your own database with tables that you've already created to it. But if you want to follow along exactly with what I'm doing today, if you'd like, on Learning Suite under today, I uploaded this creation script SQL file that you can just download and open it up in MySQL Workbench. And it's just this to create this chess piece and chess player tables that I've shown you a couple times before. Just make sure when you run it that you replace this with your own database name. Then you can just click the lightning bolt up here to run everything all at once. And even if you've already created these in the past, it should create these exact versions because it'll drop them if they're already there. So you can double check that they're there just by selecting star from them. And as you can see, we have both of these tables, so we are good to go at this step. Just come over to tooljet.com. And then if you haven't already, make an account. So it's free, and you'll be able to do plenty with the free tier account on ToolJet. So you can just come up here to try ToolJet Cloud, click there. I've already made an account before, but I can make another one just to show you what the steps are like. So just enter your email, go to your email for that confirmation link. Okay, once you've clicked on the link from the email that it sends you, then it just asks you to set up an account like this. So you can put your name. The other stuff, it doesn't matter too much. You can just put BYU. Okay, after you enter your password, you should be welcomed to this screen. So what you want to do is just click here and create a new application. Here it's going to give you a quick tutorial that you can just click through. The main thing is that on the right side are the widgets that you'll use. The left side is where you connect your database. And then towards the bottom is where you'll be writing out queries and changing some other options that you need to do. So first up, if you come over here to the top left, if you just click in here, you can give your app a name. We're just going to call it whatever you want, practice app. And then before we drag anything over or try to create something that looks somewhat like an app, we're just going to go over to here where it says sources. And ToolJet lets you add tons of data sources. You can scroll through here and see there's a whole bunch of different apps and APIs that you can connect to. But lucky for us, there's a whole bunch of databases that you can. Basically any of the major databases. And we're going to click on MySQL because that's what we've been working with. And then to fill this out, what you need to do is basically recreate what you did for your MySQL Workbench in here. So for the host, I have the original document I posted on Learning Suite that tells you what that host is. But if you don't want to find that, you can actually just go back to your connection that you made in MySQL Workbench. If you right click here and edit the connection, then you can just make sure you select everything. You can just copy the host name from here, head back here, and then make sure that gets posted all the way. Keep the port at 3306, that's the default. The database name, if you come to My Educator and then go to the database credentials, your username is also the name of the database that's your personal accessible database in MySQL or schema. So we're just going to paste that there and then also paste that username there because it's also your login credential for your database. And then I'm going to copy my password here, put that in here. One thing I've found is that if you ever come back in here and need to change something, like you typed in the database name wrong, or you want to change the name of your connection, if you wanted to change it, you could. Personal database. If you ever change anything here, just make sure that you retype your password. Otherwise, it tends to run into errors. I don't think it saves on the second time. So you can click test connection, make sure that the connection is verified, and click save, and you are good to go for this part. Okay, with your data connection made, you're ready to start dragging components or widgets from the right side of the screen and then make connections to populate those widgets with your data. So if you want, just so we have some decoration in there, I'm just going to drag over some text, and you can see when you drag over there's little squares that pop up. You can use that to arrange things if you'd like. And if you click on this, then for this text, in this case, let's do like chess players. And then you can see it changes there. You have some freedom over things like spacing and color. How about we just make it be center aligned and make it a little bit bigger. We can drag that out. We can place it wherever we want. That probably looks fine for our little sample purposes at least. And then now I'm dragging out a table. So I'm just going to put this below here. I think I'll try and make it a little bit bigger too. Let's do that. Okay. So when we click on this table, first off, just when you're working in this app, anytime you click on a widget or any of these elements, then its properties that you can change show up on the right side. So for this text box, you see the options here. If you click on the table, you see the options on the right side here. If you want to look at more widgets to drag in, just click anywhere outside from a widget, and then this screen pops up again. So we're just going to click on the table right here, and right here in this table data, we can see currently it's just a list of dummy data that they've just created for default. So this could be really nice to display some data that we have in our database, but rather than just use the sample data, we need to create a query so we can populate this table with the data from our database. So come down here to create query, click here, and we now have that MySQL data source that we created. So we're going to click that, and then if we come here, click select, we go into SQL mode, we now have the ability to write any query that we want. And this is running from the database that we've connected it to. So if you remember at the beginning of this video, we created a chess piece and chess player table. So let's just try doing this chess player. Let's create that and run. And then you'll see it created this query. It's called it MySQL1. Let's change this and call it chess player. We can save that and run. And you're not seeing it right here because we haven't connected these yet. Let me pull this up. Though if you click preview right here, you can make sure that the query is running just by first you click preview, you come down here, and if you click these little arrow points, you can see here's the data, in this case in a JSON format, which we haven't worked with in this class, so you don't have to worry too much about it. But this is just a quick way to make sure that your query is, in fact, actually running. Then if we come over here to advanced, in this case, because we want the query to populate this table every time this app is opened, we're going to click this option for run this query on page load. So we're going to just save it again to make sure that those settings are saved there. Then with our query all saved how we want it, if you come into here to table data, I'm going to delete everything right here so that we just have these two sets of curly brackets. what you want to do is just start typing out queries. You do dot, and then you have access to any queries that you saved here, in this case chess player, so you can type that out, and then you want to do another dot, and then do data. That'll bring in all of the data from that query. So we'll click out of there, and then we have right here all of our data populated from this chess player table. Let's do a simple example of how to insert data into our database from the app. So to do that, how about we just insert another row into this table? To do that, we'll need a place for anyone using this app to actually type out the data that they want to put in there. So how about we grab, if we come over here, we have a text input form. So I'm going to drag that out here. Let's put it below. Let's get a couple of these. Then I'm going to drag out a text. We could make this look prettier in the long run, but we're just going for quick and functional right now. So let's do the, oops, I keep messing up, the player ID. We had set this with an auto increment, so you could technically skip this, but we'll just do it just in case you are doing one that requires the ID to be manually inputted. And here, let's input the player's name. Oh, keep doing that. So in this app, don't highlight everything and drag off the screen, otherwise it closes it. So let's do player name. And then we also want to input their favorite piece. So we could just also input a number because it's expecting an ID in the insert statement for SQL. But let's try and make it a little bit more user-friendly. And for this, we can say favorite piece. And then let's do a drop down. So basically what we're trying to do with these, maybe I'll move this one closer over. Is we're wanting to take the input that we're given in the app and run a query that takes this input to insert something into our database. So as far as favorite piece is concerned, this one is a little bit more complicated than what's going on in here. But if we click on this drop-down box, we see that we get these options are 1, 2, or 3 because those are the labels given over here under option labels. But then we also have option values, which is the value behind the label of what would actually be inserted if you were to grab the value from this dropdown. So how about we just make our default value as number 1. And then if we come back to our creation script, if you remember, for ID of 1 we have pawn, 2 we have knight, 3 bishop, 4 rook, and 5 queen. So we can actually just recreate these values here. So let's just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because we have 5 pieces that we want to insert. And then the first one is pawn, right? And then let's see, it was knight, bishop, rook, queen. Then we have knight, bishop, and the way I'm doing this is just after the quotes, put a comma, rook, and another comma, and between quotes, queen. So what that should do is if we were to clear now, a person that's using our app wouldn't want to memorize what ID goes along with pawn, knight, bishop, rook, or queen, but that gives them the opportunity to select from something that just looks better, but then we know the option that we want to insert into the database by putting it in the values section, and each one of those are separated by commas. Now what we want to do is create a query that can insert this data that can be inputted. Let's say we did 20, and we can make any piece that we want. I like knights, those are good pieces. And we'd want it to where we could do something like take this button here and click it and insert a new player. Let's come here, say insert new player. Well, to do this, we need to write a whole new query. So if we come back over here to our queries, click the plus sign here, select our MySQL data source. Let's call this one insert chess player. And we already have this code mostly written out in here where we're inserting into the chess player table here. So I'm actually just going to copy this, come back over here, paste this here, but we don't want to insert these values again. It wouldn't let us, because it wouldn't let us repeat the primary key value there anyway. But what we want to do is grab the values from each one of these and pop them into these values. So to make this easier, if you click here, see how this says text input 1? When you click there, that's the name of this text input box. And you can keep it as text input 1, but to make it so it's easier to reference, especially if you make quite a few of these, you're going to want to keep track of them. So let's call this player ID input. And now as we hover, see how it changed the name of this input box. Let's click here. Let's call this player name input. And let's call this fave piece input. Let's do that. So then, oh, I clicked out of my query. So if I want to create a new one and come back into here, luckily it still has that. What we're going to do is similar to before in this table where we used a set of 2 curly braces to access our queries. We can also do the curly braces to access the components in our app. So we want to start off by doing these 2 curly braces here, write out components, and it might pop up for you. If it does, that's nice. You can push enter, then dot, and we want to grab the player ID, and we called that player ID input, and then put another dot and just put value, because we want the value that was inputted into here. Then after that, we have the player name that we're wanting to insert. So we can do the same thing of doing the 2 curly braces here and do components. This one is player name input dot value. But just remember, if you're doing anything where you're inserting into a varchar any string data, where before we had to surround it by quotes, whether double or single, just make sure you do the same thing, because this is going to return a string, but we need to make sure it's surrounded by quotes. So just put quotes after the 2 curly braces, and then we want the favorite piece. So we're going to do a 2 curly brackets here, do components dot fave piece value. And notice that we're selecting value. We're not selecting select option, which I think would do like knight or pawn. We want the actual the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you remember, when we clicked here, we set what those values were right here. So by choosing dot value, even if they select knight, for example, knight is in the 2nd spot, so it's going to return a value of 2. You can actually see that. Make sure you put a semicolon there. And this is actually what it's grabbing. This is what is actually going to be running. Player ID, player name, favorite piece, values 20, Jacob Stefan, and 2, even though we have knight selected. Or if I were to change this to bishop, I come back here, it changed automatically to 3. So let's make sure, let's rename it again. So this is call it insert chess player. Let's create that. I'm just going to create it because I don't want to run it yet. So we push create. So that is there. So we have this query that's ready to be run, but we still need to attach it to this button. So if we click here, if we go over to this side, it says add event handler. So an event handler is basically when someone does an action like clicking or selecting. It's telling it to run some kind of action after that event occurs. So in this case, our event is a click. So we can say on click. The default is show alert. So we're going to change this action to run a query. You can just select that from this drop-down box. And the query that we want it to run, it has this list of the 2 queries that we've saved, and let's do this as insert chess player. So just click out of here, and then let's run this. So it should run right when I click this button. So I'm going to try it. So it said insert chess player completed. It looks like it ran it correctly, but we're not seeing it in our table. I bet if I refresh this page it would work, but I'll just show you another way to do that. Is let's say we wanted to just have a refresh button. Let's do this. Let's call it refresh list. Make it a little bit bigger. And let's just do the same thing by adding an event handler. Coming onto here, on click, we want to run a query. And we're just going to rerun the select star from chess player query. Click that. Then let's refresh our list here. And there we go. We have player ID of 20, Jacob Stefan for 3. And then this will work because insert chess player is dynamically pulling whatever we put in there. We could change this to anything that we want. He loves rooks. We can insert that new player. Let's refresh the list. And there we go. Tom York is in there. So hopefully that gives you just some basic overview on how we can use these widgets, all of these elements on this side of the screen, to display data from a database as well as insert new data into it in a way that's a little bit more user-friendly than typing out code like this. So that's it for this video. I'll be doing some more videos on ToolJet in the future as well. Thanks.